loading, please. Let me start sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Matthew, we can see it, Matthew.
Mr. Jacob, good morning.
Good morning.
Can start.
So, you're welcome everyone to today's presentation. So today, basically, we'll be talking about RESTful APIs in Laravel. Laravel, a PHP framework, most popular PHP framework we know today. And this presentation is for everyone, but much will be benefited by those in backend, PHP backend team. Okay, so what is Laravel? Like I said, it's a framework. And being a framework, it means that it makes development process easier. And then we are talking about APIs. Talking of APIs, we are talking of interface that aids easy communication between mobile and the web. Yes. So as we move ahead, we'll get more clue to what it is. So the next slides, this is what we should expect from today's presentation. We'll be talking about what exactly an API is, in case you don't know what it is, because being an API or developer is an entire career on its own. Yes, you can be a back-end developer focused on API development only, and it's very, very lucrative career for you to follow. So we want to know what it is exactly, and we'll get to know what an HTTP Verbs is. This is a concept that it's attributed to API development. Then I'm going to walk you through how you can build your own API with Laravel framework. Okay, and like I said, Laravel is a PHP framework that makes development much more easier. Yes, it gives you much encapsulation, and you do less work while creating robust structures and websites, APIs, and lots more. You can use it to build APIs, website, but focus on an API this morning. So we'll learn about migrations and models. These are concepts related to Laravel. Okay, we'll learn about database seeding. In fact, you come to see why Laravel is a good choice to go for in case you are a PHP dev or you want to change your field. So you're thinking of a framework to learn. You get to see those features that Laravel stand out from any other framework we are having. Most in particular, database seeding, because I've used many frameworks, like we've used Yi before, but I've not seen seeding in database, but I've seen in Laravel. So we get to know about API routes, about API controllers. Now, the question is, what exactly is an API? To cut a long story short, API is an acronym for Application Programming Interface. That is what it actually means, Application Programming Interface. A web API, it consists of multiple publicly exposed endpoints. Wow, lots of grammars. What does this mean? These are a data storage, or will I say endpoints has to do with where data can be taken from. Yes. It accepts HTTP verbs and respond with requested data. Now, what it basically means, for example, we must have created a website that we don't have the data we are using. We are fetching the data from somewhere else. Like those of you who have created a weather API, a weather website, maybe a website that displays the weather in some particular location. Of course, you agree with me that those weather information, those weather data you are getting from is from an API. Those data were produced by a different website that now decide to expose this data to you. That data being exposed is known as endpoint. Now you are fetching it, you are querying it using HTTP request. So that is what actually makes API a very great thing to do, because it enables many companies to be able to give resources to other companies or other developers in a very secured and safe manner. So I can decide to want to implement a payment system on my website, but I don't have all it takes to be able to process maybe bank transfer or maybe ATM debiting or things like that. But I can partner with Monify or perhaps any other online money APIs or system available today, like Monify. We have FluctaWave. We have quite a lot of them. So what they need to do now is for them to expose their API for me, those endpoints. I'll be fetching those data and be processing my transaction. So we can see that API is indeed a very great lucrative career. In fact, if you happen to venture into API development, you'll be wanted by many banks as well as many organizations that has some public domains or APIs exposed for others to consume. Now, typically, what is being sent across is in form of a JSON or an extensible markup language. Well, a JSON is a form of a representation of a language that makes it easier for web communication. So we'll get to know that. Now, what are HTTP verbs? I said API is able to exchange information using HTTP verbs. Most of these things are familiar to you, especially when you start your career in web development. You are told the process in which your information gets to you. Yes, the moment you type a URL on your computer address, your browser address, you send what we call a GET request. Yes, you are trying to retrieve an information, a resource that exists somewhere in this world. And when you send that request, it is being packaged and returned back to you. That happens when you are browsing, of course. The moment you're seeing that the web page, it has gone through some processes, most especially the moment you click enter into your address bar, you are making a GET request, fetching this information, and such verb is known as the GET verb. The GET verb. This is used for retrieving resource. We have other verbs that were as well used for endpoints. Now I'm talking about browsing. You are browsing a website, getting information. It's as well applied to when you are trying to fetch information from an API or an endpoint. Okay, we use this verb as well. So the get verb is used for retrieving resource. The post is used for creating resource. You want to create resource. Fine. Monify.js, the company decide that you are not only fetching things from us, we want you to be able to create a record of a user transaction. So you are making a post request for you to be able to create that resource. So we have the get, we have the post, we have the put. The put has to do with updating a resource. Remember that already you have access to this API after proper authentication and you are recognized. Then all these verbs is what we use to manipulate the endpoint given to us. We can get the resource, we can update the resource using the put, and we can delete the resource using the delete HTTP verbs. So these are the 4 basic HTTP verbs we have, and we use it in every HTTP request and transfer protocol, like in every hypertext transfer, whatever the case. I know HTTP stands for hypertext transfer protocol. Yes, okay. So we use it for any of this, as well as querying endpoint and things like that. Then what do we mean by, how does API work? How does this API work? I told you they are simply endpoints, okay? Which means when you create this endpoint, you are exposing a link. You're exposing a link to whoever want to consume from this endpoint, okay? So this link, the first link said post/articles. I'm hereby implying that I am giving the user who try to access this link using the post HTTP verb the opportunity to be able to create a new article. Okay, so what is needed now is that when I am trying to access the article endpoint, this particular endpoint, I need to first of all use the post verb that tells me that I am trying to create. Then I have to pass in the ID of the particular resource which I'm trying to create. Okay, since you are creating, you don't necessarily need to pass in the ID. The ID will be auto-generated for you. But just know that for you to be able to create, you need to use the post HTTP verb as opposed to other verbs like get, put, and delete. Okay, we also have the get. If you're using the get and you're making use of this particular endpoint or this particular, let's say, link that is being exposed to you, it implies that you're fetching information or an article that has the ID number 1. You want to read an article, just like when you're visiting a website, you say www.bincom.net, you're fetching the home page. You want to read the home page, it gets displayed on your screen. But dealing with APIs, when you call the article /1, you are saying, get me the article that has the ID 1. That you must have used the get request for you to be able to fetch. Okay. Same with the put. If you're saying put and you put the link article, then the ID, you're saying that I want to update the article whose ID is number 1. Okay. The delete verb with the endpoint article /1 tells you that I want to delete the article that has the ID number 1. You must have been given access to perform all of these operations, and you must have been authenticated if there is an authentication system in the API. In most cases, there is always. Okay, so now these are just the summary of what the verb entails and how you can use it. Now let's dive in and see how we can go about creating an API in Laravel. Okay, Laravel is a very robust framework. You would want to try it. I encourage you to do so. Like, just give it a try. Laravel is a great website, a great framework that enables you to do things very easily. Now, to create your endpoint with Laravel, first you need to install Laravel using the command composer global require Laravel /installer. That is the command you need. Okay, fine. What is Composer? Composer is a package you need to have installed on your system first. You need to install it. Then for you to be able to use Composer, it must have been placed as in the path variable so that it will be recognized when you type into your command prompt. So using Composer, you can install Laravel globally using this command. Then for you to create a new project, a Laravel project, you still use Composer. This time around, you make use of create project -prefer-dix, Laravel /Laravel API development. Now, don't be confused. The last statement that says API development is the actual name of your project you want to create. Okay, the folder name. Now, when you type this command, it installs all the necessary dependencies as well as the package you need for a running Laravel project. This is the same process you follow when you want to start creating website with Laravel. You install a Laravel project using this command. But mind you, the same thing will be followed if you are trying to create an API with Laravel. Okay, so you don't have to cram. You can always search how to create a new project in Laravel. So this code, you don't have to cram it. Okay, now when you are done creating this folder, okay, you want to run it using PHP _south. Okay, you are now able to use PHP command. Okay, now how to run our migration. Before you start to write your migration, okay, what a migration is, if you've been into the field of web development before, or even mobile app, you will know that migration is a new way, modern way of us communicating with our database to make it easier for others to understand. You don't have to go direct to your MySQL to start typing, creating your tables. You make use of migration. So to do that, first you need to create a database. And when you create your database, you now need to navigate to what we refer to as the environment file. This environment file is located on that folder you created using Composer. You locate the environment file, then you update the those credentials that you use to create your database, like the name of the database, the ports, the password, the username. So doing that, you have now linked this Laravel project to your database you created using MySQL admin. Okay. Now, when you are done with that, you can start your migration. Let's assume we want to create an article endpoint. Okay. Now we want to create a model for that. Now this is the catch. With Laravel, you are not only doing what we call coding, like normal PHP coding. It's more of object-oriented programming. And it has one concept that makes it very, very important, like very, very great, known as an object relational modeling, which means it links your model you created in your model folder directly to your database. So the moment you are creating a new model, you're automatically populating your database with that data. So by default, it links your models with your database. So any action performed on your model automatically is reflected on your database. That is the recent way of doing things, the new era of programming using object relational modeling. Okay. Now, to create a model in Laravel, you use PHP _make, then the keyword model followed by the name of the model. Now, the moment you use -m, you are now saying that I want to also create a migration for this particular model, which means creating the model will also create the migration, which you need to later run PHP _migrate. Now, when you create the model, it creates the migration file. Then running PHP _migrate, it now reflects whatever is on the model and make a copy, a clone copy to the database, so that it's going to be in a, like it ties the model to the database by the moment you migrate it. Okay, now we now want to go into our database seeding. Now we have our model known as article model. At this point, I will encourage you to just follow through. If you don't understand, you can ask question later. Okay, now how do you seed your database using Laravel? In fact, what is seeding? What is seeding? Let's assume you are creating a YouTube website or a YouTube video streaming site, or perhaps a Facebook. Now, you want to be able to see how scalable your website is. How scalable, which means, can this website occupy 10,000 users? What happens if this website have about 100,000 users? Will it hang, or will it stop working? Will it stop functioning? Will it be able to scale through increasing numbers of users? Okay, for you to test that, actually, Laravel produce what we call database seeding, which means instead of you waiting until users start creating accounts on your website, you can use database seeding to create any number of users or number of models you want to any number of times. You can create 500,000 users automatically to see if the website can scale with that high number of users. So this is a very unique feature in Laravel. Honestly, I've not seen it in YouTube. I've worked with YouTube for some time, but I've not seen it. But I've seen it in Laravel. Okay. So now you want to seed your database, the article model we created. We create our class called, you don't need to create the class. You just run PHP _make seeder. Then the name of the seeder file, which is what? Article table seeder. When you run this command, first command, it generates this file known as the article table seeder class. From this article table seeder class, it extends the seeder, which makes you be able to populate your database. And not only populate your database, you also have access to Faker library. Faker library is a way you can auto-generate any word, username. You can generate random things. You can decide to generate name of a person. So the moment you are creating the users, this Faker library gives you random names. You don't have to think of name you want to use to create. And remember, everything is auto-generated, okay? Then the moment you are done with this command, you have this file. Now, to now make it reflect, you need to run the PHP artisan DB seed in Laravel. The moment you do this, it reflects automatically, okay? So I know you're considering using Laravel very soon, Abby, okay? But that is not all. Laravel also contains what we know as route and controllers. Now, route and controllers give you a more secure access to your website, whereby any route that is not registered in the web.php file cannot be accessed. It will return a 404 page, not found page. So which means for you to be able to start making use of your endpoint, you need to register the endpoint. That link you need to register. You need to register the link that you are exposing to the users who are trying to consume your endpoint, other developers. Now to register that, you go to your web.php. Okay, this time around, because we are dealing with API, we have web.php. That one is for normal website. But if you are dealing with API, you go to api.php file under the route folder. Then you type all of these things. It is assumed that we are trying to create an article endpoint. So you just type this using each of those verbs. First, you need to type the class route, the route class, which is a class that you must have import. Then you are now able to, using the get verb, you append the link. Then you tell us which controller it should route to, which means the moment a user type this link on the browser, this particular article/ID of the article, where do you want, which controller do you want to handle this particular routing? So which means we are giving the controller, article controller, and specifying the show action. Yes, the show action particularly. So which means this article controller was the article controller we created earlier on. Now, the moment this link is typed on the browser, this will be the file that is going to handle that request. So which means in this file, we are now going to be able to tell what data to be returned. Okay, we now see how this file look like, article controller. The next page, this is the article controller file, how it looks like. Now, this is what is going to handle those requests. Now, each of those routing means that the moment the link is entered on the website, now it goes to this particular file, which handles it depending on the action. The action is each of these functions you are seeing. We have the index function, we have the show function, we have the store function, we have the update function, we have the delete function. Now, each of these functions now is what we are using to respond to the user request from our endpoint. Okay, so the index function, the moment the person tried to use the articles link, only articles, it routes to the index function, the index. What does the index function do? It returns article.all, articles.all. This one means it returns all the articles that has been created with the model that is also linked to the database. It gives all the articles, remember, in JSON format, So which means the user can now access these things. When the user tries to access it using the article/ID, it goes directly to the show action, which returns a particular article for that particular ID, only article for that particular ID. The store function is used when you want to use what we call the post HTTP verb. When you want to create a new article, you use the store function. And remember, once it is created, it responds with a JSON article, which means the article that is being created in a JSON format now, and returning a 201. So you have the option to be flexible when you are dealing with API development in Laravel. So, well, what is the conclusion of what we are saying? Laravel is a great framework. It's really great for PHP dev. So you don't have to keep waiting to see when you want to start exploring Laravel. You can start it from today or tomorrow. With Laravel, you know what we have, what we call binding. Yes, model binding, which means it injects the article instance into a method automatically, like what we have in the previous thing. What we call this show function has an article class, then a variable as $article. Now, what is happening here is that the moment a request is being sent using that ID, Laravel automatically binds the ID with the database article, sorry, the model called article, it fetches it automatically and only returns the JSON format of that particular article. So it has a feature known as a binding, and it injects easily. So if such article is not found, it returns a 404 page. Okay, so we call this implicit route modeling and model binding. Yes, that's the right word to use for it. And for you to test this API we just created now, this one we just created is a simple API I developed for the course of this presentation. To test it, you need a postman. A postman is beyond the scope of my presentation, but I will encourage you to learn what postman is about. Is what we use to test API endpoint that is being created by web devs. Okay, so when you have your postman, you can start trying this link. This link I registered under the api.php. Try these links, and you are able to get the results displayed to you. Okay, now Laravel is a framework that is developed for PHP productivity. Yes, they want us to be productive as a developer, and it encapsulates many details and gives us ease of operation. Okay, using a RESTful API is the best option. Is the best option to build a single interface between your data and your client. Okay, you might ask, why do I need an API? You need an API because you want to be able to provide services to other websites, services to other firms, startups. Okay, I want to create an API that will give you the list of flights available in Nigeria for a particular airline. Okay, now for you who is building a website that want to be able to get that details, so that when the person search for the available flight, he or she can see this thing. You need my endpoints. Okay, you need to get registered. Then I give you those endpoints, those link. Okay, then you are able to now get those details. So API is really, really great. Okay? I share my data with you without you having to see those private things that I'm hiding from you. Okay, I can control what you can see and what you cannot see. So that is all about API development. And I want to thank you all for listening to my presentation. And I encourage you to ask questions at this point. You have any question? Let's have on this call.
Ask questions or ask.
All right. All right.
Who has question from Mr. Okay, somebody's asking question in the DM.
Okay, that's cool. Who is that person? Okay, that's Mike Alex. How easy it is to learn PHP and most of all Laravel. Wow. PHP, like other programming language, well, it's not about how easy, it's about your commitment and the time you devote to it. You can learn PHP in just 1 month. Well, I would say you won't be a perfect person, but at least you are beyond beginner's level. Okay, so it is easier to learn the syntax. Then learning Laravel, you need to know PHP because Laravel is built on PHP. It's a framework. So you need to be able to know PHP as well as object-oriented programming before you can learn Laravel. So PHP is a prerequisite to learning Laravel. Okay, so it's not as difficult. Yeah, it's just about time and effort and commitment as well. Within 1 month, you can learn PHP, then start your Laravel journey. Any other question, please? Did I answer that question, Michael? All right, thank you. So any other question?